Hello! Hello and welcome to the Guild Wars 2 Guru State of the Game. My name is Grouch, and I'll be your host. Today we're joined by three ArenaNet developers. We have, starting from left to right, we have Tyler Bierce. There he's waving. We got, familiar face, we have John Sharp.
So guys.
And we also have Carl McLean.
Hey.
And we're also so graciously joined by Nero from JBUO.
Hey guys.
And we also have Zeph from Team Paradigm.
Hello.
All right, we have a lot of stuff to cover today. Not a lot of time to do it. We'll try to cram in as much as possible, so we're going to just jump into it. First topic here we wanted to talk about was Spirit Watch and kind of just the whole February patch in general. Kind of just to start off, what do you guys feel like the general reception of the February patch was? The general takeaway?
So community reaction has been really positive to Spirit Watch. I've seen a lot of people saying it's like their new favorite map. They like that it feels different than the other maps because it has that orb capture the flag-esque secondary mechanic, and then also even in hot join play, it's sort of a brawly match in the center. So there's always a lot of action, and it can feel a lot smaller than the other maps.
Sure. Anything to add?
We've had some pretty fair positive feedback for the balance adjustments that we made. A lot of openings for the Necromancer, and some interesting changes for the Elementalist as well, with the aura adjustments and trade balance.
So it occurs to me real quick, Grouch, maybe we should talk about who these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
Joining me a little bit.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Let me
just friends.
Quick rundown. This is Tyler Bierce. He's one of our PvP designers, so he does a lot of the scripting for the maps, and he focuses on a lot of the balance of the map and stuff like that. So that's why he's talking about a lot of the PvP-centered stuff. Carl McLean is one of our balance guys, focuses a lot on balance. So that's why he'll be talking specifically to balance issues and stuff like that.
Yep.
So and I'm one of the leads, so I kind of try to help everybody. But yeah, these guys are specialists in their given areas. So.
Yep. Kind of the middleman. All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, okay. Well, how about Spirit Watch? There's been kind of I wouldn't say controversy, but just kind of some issues with the map. The orb, invulnerability, ride the lightning. What are you guys looking to do with that?
Yeah, Tyler, what are we doing for that?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're looking at right now. Like we know that Ride the Lightning is really strong in the map, and there's other movement skills that are also equally strong, like Engineer Super Speed and even like the passive Signet 25% move, that kind of thing. I think it's a little bit of a like slippery slope on what when we decide to block things. Because like if we say Ride the Lightning drops the orb, then what else should drop the orb?
Should Savage Leap do it?
Exactly. Like is it okay that you can Engineer can Elixir R and dodge roll 4 times in a row with the orb, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's definitely something really on our radar, and we're looking at things we can do that make that a better experience when you're running it, but like you still have a lot of build diversity and options when you're running it as well.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Nero and Zeph how they felt about the map.
Yeah, I was gonna say is just a little bit ambiguous in terms of your response. Like, what specifically? Like, how are you looking at that? Like, do you feel like you obviously feel like the movement speed, like, should there be movement speed and skills that allow you to get the orb to the points faster? Like, was that the original intent?
Yeah.
Or
yes.
is that kind of okay?
Like the map was balanced so that like even if you don't ever run the orb, your team never runs it yourself. Like you can still win just by having better point control and like defeating enemy players and that kind of thing. And the orb's up really often, so like even if the enemy does like manage to get one through a lot of invulnerability skills and stuff, it's not a loss. Like I never log into the map and say, there's an elementalist on the other team, I guess we should quit.
So in the design of the map, were you kind of aiming at having a lot more of these like smaller skirmishes, like off of nodes and just like the 2v2s and stuff on nodes, as opposed to like the second map in the tournament rotation where you basically just have that big 5v5 clash in the middle?
Yeah, exactly.
And is that what you're kind of leaning towards in terms of map design in general? Like, is that where you want to go with it, or?
Yes and no. We have a lot of maps that are already like stay on this point and defend the point as long as possible. So like we did people say, oh, a lot of these maps feel really similar despite having different secondaries. So, that's one of the reasons. So Spirit Watch was a way to pull people off the points. Like, you can't defend the node by just sitting on it because the enemy team could run the orb into your point and then neutralize it instantly. So, sort of, you have to take a more offensive defense.
Zeph?
I don't know. Don't you think the map is a bit snowbally in the sense that if a team gets ahead and gets with the orb and wins the first initial fight, then it snowballs in their favor because that orb spawns right off the beginning? I don't know.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that?
Like, that's an issue, I think, really with any of the maps that even.
Well, on Temple, the buffs spawn later, which gives the team a chance to actually aim for the buffs more so than going for the points and trying to catch up via the buffs.
Or comeback mechanic of any of the maps, but like even a Battle of the Kylo, like a team can get really strong control. Like if they win the first team battle, and then like if their treb stays up, and they can just control it for most of the match after that.
Sure.
But like that's definitely something that we're looking at, is like ways that we can make any map, not even necessarily Spirit Watch, like have the better opportunity for comebacks later in the match.
But Zeb, you raised a great point because with the Force of Niflhel, we had the two NPCs spawning right from the get-go, and then we tried a test where we just started doing them 30 seconds in, and then we went back to more of an opening gambit type feel. So that's one of those things that like with the orb, we could delay that by 10 seconds if we wanted to, just to try to see how it's going to play. So that's one of those things that we can play with. And to your question earlier, Nero, four of the things we're actually looking at are the invulnerability stuff, stealth stuff, how should stealth interact with carrying the orb, how should transforms interact with carrying the orb. If you jump into like Tornado, you're knocking everybody back, and you have the orb, they need to do some like ranged immobilize or something like that to try to get a hold of you, ranged chill, something like that to deal with you. So those are the three different things we're also looking at, of just like, those aren't necessarily things that should drop the orb, but we're looking at, okay, should all transforms? Should it just be the elite transforms? Like, we're just looking at what's the right balance for the game.
And if we cut off, if we say that you can't be invulnerable while you're carrying the orb, then does that mean? Like, the Mesmer's profession skill distortion, like, can they now not carry the orb if they use that skill? It's a bunch of.
I just have one more question. I mean, have you? It was a suggestion on the forum, but have you guys considered just giving the orb its own skill set, and that way it makes it fair on all classes? So let's say it locks your utilities, and then you have a block and a speed up on the orb, and maybe several other abilities, and that way everybody's on even ground when they pick up the orb. It will just be their stats in effect.
Yeah, we actually had a very old map about 2 years ago that basically did that. That was this thing that you picked up, and it basically changed your 5 skills, and it locked out everything besides the 5. And a lot of the feedback we got was that people didn't like to run it because they actually wanted to play their character. They wanted to use their skills. So that's the other side of that suggestion, Seth, is that some people might be like, I don't want to ever carry it because I want to play my class with my stuff. But it's something we could try.
The orb actually had some.
Yeah.
I think we blocked out player skills for a little while as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried the same thing for a little while, and people just kept saying we want to actually play our classes.
Yeah.
So.
The other problem is, like, the very first time you pick it up, right? Like, your skill bar changes, and you're not maybe expecting that, and now people are trying to gun you down, and you've got to sort of read through these 5 new skills to see what your skills actually do. And like that's something that people will eventually learn if they pick it up a lot, and they go into the map by themselves to test it, but maybe not in the heat of the match, which is not a great experience either.
Right. I had one last question.
Sure.
In terms of, you said you were looking at those and determining like how you're going to have like stealth and all of that. Like, what do you mean by looking at? Like, are you looking at some type of like win-loss percentages, like whenever certain classes like carry the orb and use certain skills, or like how exactly? Like, what's your process in looking at that and determining how to balance that?
You guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so part of it is just looking at player feedback, right? Like, if a lot of people on the forums or in matches, like when I log into game and like when people whisper me, like if they're complaining a lot, like that's something like that we take like a harder look at. But like even when we were initially developing the map, like it was sort of like a red flag. Whereas like this could become a problem, something that like it shouldn't be so bad that it's unplayable, right? And like the map in all of our internal playtests on still. So it was like, hey, if this becomes like it changes the whole meta and like people hate the map because invulnerability skills are too strong, or they find some like super powerful build that like cannot be stopped, then that was something that we could go back and readdress in a later patch.
All right, well, we're going to move forward then. A little bit about matchmaking. How do you guys feel it's working out? I know we kind of talked about solo queue before and how it's just not really going to be in any time soon. How do you think the new system put in, how's that working out for you?
I'll take it. Basically, so we had paids obviously at first, and that was our way of separating like the really skilled pre-made teams away from like the more casual or competitive casual. And when we got rid of paids, then all of those people were now playing in our two-team tournaments, right? And queues were popping a lot faster, and that was really good. We had more people playing, but the downside of that is obviously that now there were pre-mades facing against pickup groups. And at the same time of that patch, we also split the ratings and reset them, so that sort of compounded the problem where everyone was starting at the same rating, even if they were a pre-made or a new guy, and like as people were trickling in, they were starting at sort of a middle ratings value and still playing against that. And now that the ratings are settled more, that's less of a problem, but it's still something that like in the future we would like to maybe split out like a solo dual queue and a pre-made only queue type thing.
I was under the impression from last time that we talked that when you queue, it prioritizes, if you queue as 5, it prioritizes trying to match you with another group that queues as 5, right? If you queue as solo, it tries to match you with 5 other solos. It seems like it would work really well. Is it just like a population problem right now? That there's just not enough people queuing?
That's part of the problem. That's why we didn't want to split it originally, which if you remember, that was why we talked about we didn't want to just do a solo queue thing. But we're looking at too, like that's one of the things that we think that we've seen, obviously on the forums, a ton of feedback about people wanting a solo queue. And you look at other games, like a lot of, MOBAs and stuff, like there's a way to just play solo with the team. So we realized that's something that people are used to. They were also used to it from GW1. So that's one of those things that we would like to do. It's on our priority list. It's just not as high as some of the other things that we have. But we really feel like a solo queue would help a lot of people because that's how they want to play the game. Maybe they don't have time to make friends and actually have a team. They want to just solo queue. So that's one of those things that we can't do yet, but it's something that we're looking at doing down the road.
Yeah, and even when you do queue as a 5-man, like all 5-man teams aren't of equal skill, right? So
Sure.
like they're distributed all through the different ratings levels. So just because you play against a 5-man team doesn't mean like it's a good 5-man team, right?
So I solo queued the other day, and just the amount of like 5v4s, I think I even had like a 3v4 one time, is just kind of a little bit insane to me. I feel like a lot of that problem is just stemming from like people don't get kicked out of the roster if they like go offline, and sometimes the queues take a while, so people like register for the queue and then just log off because of whatever reason, and then all of a sudden it sticks that team with a 4v5.
A lot of that's already addressed. One of our programmers like if you get kicked out of if you leave your roster early before you get matched up, the roster will reset and it'll pop open again. And, you have to resubmit. So hopefully that should go away.
Okay.
Yep.
You've also brought up rating now quite often, and I mean, I don't know if you guys are considering it, but shouldn't rating be visible to people? I think that's one of the issues with the queue right now, is because somebody queues and they don't know what rating they're at, and they can't compare it with other people, and it would also give people actual incentive to play these solo queues, because at the moment they don't have it. They don't know what rating they are, they don't know who they're being matched up against, and if they just could get a clue where they stand in the rating in comparison to other people, I think people would be more inclined to queue up and stay in the queue in fear of their rating. It could also solve the issue of people leaving games, because right now there's no repercussion. He doesn't know how much his rating is, he doesn't know how much he's losing, ergo he's not interested if he just alt F4s.
Sure. I agree with both of those points. One of the things that's on our plate that's coming, I don't want to say soon, because sometimes saying soon can get us in trouble, and if we say soon,
that's fair enough.
we can't back it up. Yeah, fair enough, right? All right. But yeah, we'll watch our feedback on that. But yeah, so right. One of the issues is You have people who are just jumping out of games, which we need to have some sort of repercussion for that. But the bigger issue that you brought up was just being able to see that your ranking and how you stack up. That's actually something that's going to be fixed relatively in the near future. We do have some stuff coming out that's going to show you guys that stuff. So I think that Colin's already talked about the leaderboards, and that's going to be able to show you guys that stuff, which is going to fix exactly that issue, Zeph. So that's something that is very, very close that we are actually testing. We are actually monitoring people right now with internal stuff. So once all the bugs are ironed out for that, we're just going to flip it on for the players. So that's actually testing it right now.
So you said leaderboards. Does that mean that we're not going to have like some, you know, non-linear, arbitrary number that can go up and down that we can see in terms of rating?
For right now, what we're going to do is just show you your ranking, and your ranking can be determined by different things like on my server or my world that I'm on, against my friends, against my guild, the entirety of my server, so US versus Euro. You'll be able to sort your ranking by all those different things. So that'll be on the leaderboards itself. You won't have anything in-game yet. We're going to do the leaderboards first, and then based off that feedback, determine what we want to do in-game for player feedback for that stuff.
So,
Will that be ranking? Will it be ranking and rating combined, or will it just be your ranking?
Right now, it'll be ranking based off of your rating, but we're not going to show the rating yet because we want to make sure that our numbers are all calibrated with a lot of these formulas. If you guys have studied formulas, there's a lot of little dials you can tweak. So we want to make sure that the variance and like the amount of time that you lose if you go inactive, how fast your rating falls off. We want to make sure that all those numbers are good before we ever show you the actual numbers. So we're going to play with those numbers first as just ranking, and then later we might show the actual rating later. But right now we won't.
Okay, so later on you might,
We
or
might.
is it like a sure thing? Because the problem with that is a lot of people have, like, you know, had worries on the forums, because even if you're ranked 1 and someone's ranked number 2, the second person is always interested in the difference between him and
Sure.
rank 1.
Yep.
So for a lot of people, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a letdown if it doesn't have the actual number of how
Sure.
much their rating is.
Yep. We've seen other games do it both ways. So we're just we want to play with that system first, and we can always go to ratings later. But we didn't want to like show it to you and then take it away. So we decided to just not show it at first, just do the rankings and then move forward in the league. So that's why we did
All
that.
right.
I'm curious, do the 8-team tournaments still have a place?
I would say yes and no. Right now, they're still reasonably popular on EU. They're not as popular on NA. So we're looking at possibly moving them to just like a weekends only thing, or also they're kind of going to lead into maybe scheduled daily and monthly tournaments. So like at specific times of the day, like 3 p.m. or whatever, like a scheduled tournament kicks off, and then like everyone can participate. Maybe like a Swiss style tournament that maybe goes into a top 8, that kind of thing.
Do you guys have any plans to change the way hot joins work? Like maybe remove them? It just seems like it'd be better to have people forced into playing like free tournaments instead. I think it just like it builds bad habits. Like you don't really learn how to play tournaments when you do hot join, and
Sure.
then it's hard to make the transition between the two.
So we're looking at custom arenas, largely taking over the place of hot joined, because once people can set up their own servers, and they can set them as 2v2s or 5v5s or 8v8s, and they can password protect them if they want, or they can adjust their own dials, and that's going to be a thing where it's not going to be every single match is just an 8v8 that like nobody cares about, right? Like it's going to be like Grouch's House of Pain.
I like it.
Have your own server. And that's going to be like a hangout spot too for guilds and teams that play together. They can always go to like their favorite server.
So what about new player experience in terms of SPVP? Like, I mean, I know that you were talking about, potentially doing away with hot joins in terms of custom arenas, but just like hot joins are incredibly frustrating. Like I hate playing them because they're just like, it's just Zergy, your teammates don't res you, all of that stuff. And so I could definitely understand a lot of new players like getting really frustrated with that and then not really pursuing PvP past that.
Sure.
do you have any plans to like change the new player experience with SPVP, or are there anything in the works there?
Yeah, I mean, like right now, like our whole focus is just reworking PvP and like the systems, reward systems, progression, new player experience. Like all of that stuff is like a high priority for us, so that we can like make a better experience, before we expand and reach out. So we just want to have a more robust and stable core game first.
And it's not just that, but it's also like the progression system when you're in PvP. It's the rewards that you get. You know what I mean? It's the ability to actually watch streamers and understand what's happening, teaching people the game better, at all levels. Like all those things are things that we need to improve. So it's I think you're right that it's the actual gameplay experience, but it's also the shell around that. We're not doing a good enough job to teach new players how to play a lot of that stuff. And there's the website doesn't teach you how to do a lot of that. Like, there's a lot of plans to fix all those things so that people can actually get in the game and understand what's happening.
I just had one more question in terms of the tournaments. It seems like just in terms of Heart of the Mists and like the PvE world versus world realm, like there's just this huge like rift between those two communities. Like all of your progress from PvE and World v World is like gone whenever you go to the Heart of the Mists. And you're talking about Guild Wars, a game where people spend like hundreds of hours farming for a look. I mean, do you see that as a problem? And like, how do you think you're going to reach the PvE World v World community?
So that was sort of the original design decision with Guild Wars 2, is to keep structured PvP as separate from the PvP portion of the game as possible, and that there's almost no overlap besides like bag slots and dies. I think that's something that. And now that we have data points on like who plays what, we've seen a lot of structured PvP players also play PvE and vice versa. So that's something that I think we're probably going to ease up a bit on the future. Even with this upcoming patch, there's a notable change that the PvP daily achievement and monthly achievement is now going to allow you to earn a laurel optionally. So you're not going to be able to earn double laurels, but like you can do either the PvP or the PvE daily to get a laurel, and whatever first one you do will get you a laurel.
While we're on the subject of armors and so on, why is there no actual like unique set look for PvP, or a sort of like armor that certain PvP players can farm for, like another incentive for people to play PvP? I'm sorry I'm stressing on this point, but there aren't enough incentives right now for a PvE player or a PvP player and to play PvP.
Yep.
So have you considered any like giving the PvP players the ability to farm a legendary through their glory, or through tournaments, and just have the look?
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Right now
I love
we're
legendaries.
Because right now it's not. It's
good. I don't
It's
know.
not possible to earn a PvP legendary in the game right now, but that's something that we're looking to add. Not saying when.
Like, I know there are. I know there are like PVE weapons that are strictly for PVE right now and not available in PvP. Like I think it was that Mist sword and several other swords. They're not available for PvP players to have as a look. Are you looking to add those in?
Most of them actually are available as rewards. They're just in the higher ranking chests that people haven't achieved yet, like the Phoenix and Dragon rank chests.
Oh, because they're not on the locker, so like.
Okay.
It's a possibility that they're not in the locker, but they still exist.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's also
awesome.
stuff, but that's what we just had a meeting yesterday about that actually. That we want to make sure that the PvP players can get a lot of those really cool high-end PvE things. So we're trying to find out how they can do that. When we first made the split between PvP and PvE, we wanted it to be the case that you couldn't get stuff just in PvE or just PvP. So when we shipped, both things were pretty much equal for everybody. But now there's been some stuff added for PvE, like for the legendary stuff. And we're like, that's not fair to PvP players. So that's something that we're definitely trying to fix right now. So.
Yeah. Word on the street is if you log out in PvP at character select, you're gonna show up in your PvP armor in the next patch. So.
Nice. All right. Well, I kind of want to jump subjects here, and this is going to be a little rough. We're going to try to touch each profession just a little bit. Carl, you do most of the balancing for all the professions. So we we want like a little bit like a roadmap or where the professions are heading or how you feel they are right now, and we'll kind of just run down the list. So start off with the Elementalist.
Start off with the Elementalist. Elementalists right now, they are kind of hold into for seen in the PvP aspect. They only have one specific build that works for pretty much everything they want to do. If they want to go damage, if they want to go bunker, they usually tend to go the 0, 10, 0, 30, 30 spec, and it does well for pretty much everything they want. It means that they're kind of like, in the end, it means that the Elementalist is kind of, they're a little bit limited in what their options right now. And we'd like to, like Elementalists, let's see what they are supposed to do is they are meant to be kind of a jack of all trades, but not really the king of any particular style of play. Being like they could be a really good bunker, but they're not going to be like the best. They're not going to be like a guardian where he's going to be protecting himself and his allies and like the entire capture point at the time. So what we wanted to do is eventually we would like to kind of get the Elementalists builds more opened up and like maybe rearrange some of the traits and increase some of the traits that are not taken at this point, and make them more viable with other specs.
Okay, I was talking to Fanaram yesterday, and he feels that a lot of the Elementalist builds are really focused around healing. Like almost every Elementalist build right now is really dependent on whether you can heal or not. Is there any plans to change that?
Elementalists are good healer types. We've actually reduced a lot of their healing effectiveness in PvP by like as much as 50%. For quite a few of their abilities.
Some of this stuff is discussed.
Like based on like for how they scale with healing. And I don't think that will be changing in particular. That's something that they're expected to have access to. And where the Guardians tend to get a lot of healing through like small bursts and little by little regeneration and stuff like that, Elementalists will have more burst heals available to them.
Okay. One last thing, and I kind of don't really want to mention this, but I feel it's a big issue right now. There's a way that Elementalists can self-res.
Fixed.
It's fixed.
Tornado?
Yes.
We talked about it today, and we believe we have a fix for it right now in the works.
Okay, perfect. So will we see that this patch upcoming?
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
As
well,
much as
we hope.
we hope.
Okay.
Fair enough.
We're it's in testing right now. And
Okay.
We hope to have that fixed.
Okay. It's one of the big ones. It's kind of like block bug. So it's
When you go to a tournament and you see 3 Elementalists running Tornado.
yeah, it's suspicious.
Yes.
It's kind of good.
All right. Running short on time. Any last notes on Elementalist?
Not particularly.
All right. Engineer.
I just say something
Actually,
on
one thing.
Elementals before we move on.
All right. First.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, don't you think that it's the burst healing that is making them over the top? Because at the moment, if you count like 1 to 0 the Ellie, then he's gonna burst heal back to almost full, and then you're gonna have to repeat that process. I mean, I know most classes cannot kill an Ellie in a 1v1. It's almost impossible for them to even scratch the Ellie, and I mean, as a class, it does a bit too much on its own, if you know what I mean. It bunkers, it does damage, it has mobility, it has everything the Guardian misses.
And yes, and the Elementalist does it has a lot of good self-protection and stuff like that. And we would like to where the Elementalist has a good place in its bunker style. It always has to be moving. Immobilize its enemy. Like if it stops, it's pretty much dead unless you have Mistform or like a flash or something like that. But we want to introduce other things that will counter that style of play.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we have in mind is maybe as a trait profession or a trait spec, which would be something sort of similar to boon hate, something that says, "Hey, you have boons on you. I'm going to deal extra damage based on the amount of boons that you have on you." So that way, this style of bunker, the boon bunker, will have a natural enemy towards it.
But you also bring up the healing too, which is one of those things too. A lot of their heals are actually really quick sometimes, and they're easy to get off, especially with the Mistform, right? It's easy to get the positioning, the spacing you need, and then get off your heal really safely. that's one of the other things that we're looking at is maybe the actual time itself needs to come down so that good players can actually hit that heal, because the Ellie without that heal, then he's got to run from that fight as soon as he gets dazed, or if he gets interrupted or knocked down, he's got to get out of that fight immediately. So that puts more play in it though. So we want to give both sides play to it so that the non-Ellie's watching for that heal, and if you hit it, it's kind of like the one-on-one ranger fights we had in GW1. If you had crypt shot rangers, like they were just watching for D shots on each other to hit Trolls Dungeon, back and forth and back and forth, and as soon as you hit it, you won the fight.
Yeah.
And it was a very strong play. So it was really exciting to watch too. So you're dead on Zeph about that. We want to really make sure that if you do hit that heal, it's a big deal for that Ellie. So we got to look at for timing on the heals too.
Yeah, a couple things. Yeah, we were looking at the timings of certain skills as well as the possible implementation of Boon Hate as well.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to engineer then. We do have a lot of professions to cover. So go ahead and take it away.
Which one? Sorry.
Engineer.
Engineer. Actually, we put some pretty heavy focus onto engineer this time around. I have like a couple of pages worth of
It's a lot
engineer
of
notes. Some increases, some balance changes. One of the increases we're planning on, or we're implementing right now, is we have improvements to turrets. Some buffs, some tweaks, some interesting play to them. So for example, the Thumper turret, instead of just dealing damage, it's going to now actually cripple enemies that are around it when it fires. And it fires for like once every 5 seconds or so, but it's going to cripple for 3 seconds every time it connects with all the attackers. It's also going to have, I think it's a blast combo already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tyler loves some engineer. Let's see.
Talk about kids.
Yeah. We've increased the damage for rifle turret as well, and some other cool stuff that you'll see. We have another thing we've actually gone and done is kit refinement. I know you guys have seen the 100 nades build.
Yes.
So kit refinement is a trait. It's a 10-point trait. And they are not usually intended on being like build-defining traits. Kit refinement was way too powerful in some areas, and completely lackluster in others. So we wanted to normalize how this trait actually works and make it useful for all kits, and not like fight-ending skills that like really dominate people.
Yeah, because it was really strong with grenade kit and
People would use
elixir gun.
People would just like run up and say swap to grenade kit as they're throwing a grenade barrage, and there's 24,000 damage, and it killed most everything in that single round. So that one. So I don't know if we want to say how we changed the skills.
I think at this point we should just go high level.
Probably high level.
Teach.
Yeah, kit refinement is going to be more utility and less damage output.
Do you want to talk real quick maybe about the overall place for the engineer, what he fits in the grand scheme of things, maybe?
Yeah. So the engineer is kind of it's a mid-range skirmisher they're going to be really impactful in close range fights, and have the ability to control space in general, whether it's through turrets or through control or through
A lot of AoE.
a lot of AoE and stuff like that.
Area defense.
Yes.
Sure.
So they're not exactly long range specialists, though they do have some pretty high impact skills available to them. And I don't know if that's the. Is that a?
Yeah, I think that gets a lot of it.
I feel like that gets a pretty good.
And if you guys have questions
idea,
as
like
we're
what
saying
the
stuff,
engineer's
feel
about.
free to just jump in and say, hey,
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense. So,
I don't want to ramble, but
yeah, we're just trying to get through the whole list. So, how do you enter?
And just, I mean, Tilda will kill me if I don't mention this, but about the kit refinement, once that was changed, it cancelled out a lot of other specs for engineers, and at the moment, engineers seem to be pigeonholed into either do a lot of damage and die really quickly, or survive forever and not do any damage. So there is no in between for that class. And I mean, buffing turrets as well. like a lot of people don't like the playstyle of turrets because it's just something you place down and then you leave and you ignore, and it just doesn't seem interactive for those people. I mean, is there a way to make them a bit more interactive, a bit more enjoyable for the engineer to use? Because once you put those turrets down, the engineer gives up all defensive utilities as well at the same time.
Well, the idea is a lot to play around the turrets and use their overcharge skills to keep yourself safe and your allies safe. Things like the overcharge on Thumper turret, which is a large knockback blast finisher, and like it's a pretty good defensive skill as well. Things like net turret, where the turrets are intended to be your defensive abilities.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
if I can jump in, turrets were intentionally made to be like a different play style, because like you may not enjoy just dropping a turret and going AFK, but like there's some players that do, like they want less buttons that they have to worry about, like the Signet Warriors, right? Like they're like, oh, I just never hit any of my utility skills, right? Like, it's sort of the engineer variant of that play style.
All right, I got one last question on engineer, and then we'll move on. Do you guys plan on changing the RNG nature of a lot of the engineer skills at any point, or is that just going to be part of the core mechanic?
So we started in on a little bit of that. Elixir S, no, that's not S.
S is small.
U. There we go. The quickness granting one is going to be changing. It's only going to have access to 2 of the haste utilities, which is either frenzy or haste. So you got the warriors one or the thieves one, and we took out quickening zephyr, and we also took out veil from the throne skill. So now you're going to have missile reflection with the wall of reflection, or you're going to have smoke screen, which is missile destruction.
Okay, so we're working to remove RNG essentially is what we're looking towards.
Not remove it, not remove it totally, but
To limit it at least.
Yeah.
So if you think back to Mesmer, some really early iterations of Mesmer would give you, say, like, okay, here's 7 positive boons you could have, and here's 7 conditions you can put on somebody. And we just said, that's just too much RNG, it's not fun, I can't play around it. Like, it's just so much stuff that I can't react to it once it actually happens. What we realized with Mesmer is a lot more fun if you have a smaller set of, like, it's these 2 to 3, or it's these 2 to 3. Same thing for the engineer. We just want to have it be smaller subsets, so you can actually play around it as a skillful player.
yeah, now you'll not be like throwing your elixir down, being like, I hope it's missile reflection, or like I hope I'm going to be protected from missiles, and then get veil and be like, okay, now I have to run through it to get stealth.
All right, we're gonna jump ahead to the next profession here. Guardian.
All right. Guardian is our kind of it is our boon centric heavy armor profession.
Sure.
And they are definitely slower than most professions, though they do have abilities to shadow step and to take themselves to specific points of a fight. They deliberately don't have like abilities that will take, like shadow steps that will take them away from the fight. In particular, once they get in, they're expected to stay in and to keep going while they fight.
Do you have any like changes that you can tell us about possibly that you're working on? I think most people are pretty happy with Guardian.
Guardians in general are fairly solid at this point. They have a lot of different specs available to them. They can take on a bunker style spec and be like, I am boons. I apply boons to my allies, and we're just going to stay here and have fun. They can be damage dealers with their shadow step mechanics and deal heavy burning damage as well. And they have some pretty good play to them already.
Okay, so nothing immediate right now, I guess.
Nothing huge.
All right, sorry, Guardians. That was nothing for you guys this time. All right, we do have Mesmer coming up next, and obviously both Nero and Zephyr play Mesmer here, so we'll have a little bit more of a discussion on this one. So
Yep.
Take it away.
No. All right, fine.
Go for it.
Mesmer's this time around. I'm looking at my notes here. I actually have notes.
You can talk about the bean
So
stuff.
one of the things that we've actually changed a little bit, and it's in test right now, is our. So they have the great sword spatial surge, and they have confusing images, which are beam attacks that like connect directly to your target. And we now have the ability to make these beams actually strike enemies that are within that beam as well. So with this next patch, you're going to see these beam attacks actually be able to hit things that are along the path to your target.
Which is going to change a lot of the play, because a good player can get a lot more efficiency out of who they're hitting and where.
Something like, what is it? Confusing images is now going to be, instead of 5 stacks of confusion, it has the ability to deliver, since it can hit up to 5 targets in between, it's going to be able to deliver 25 stacks of confusion to different opponents.
Okay, you have any other changes you can mention to us before we get started with Zeph and Nero?
Go for it, man.
Go ahead, Zeph.
Can we clarify the beam? So the beam does not pierce your target, so people can just run up and block the beam
They will
away from their friend.
So right now, Spatial Surge will hit up to 3 targets. So it should always hit your main target, but then it'll hit up to 2 other targets in between.
Isn't that a bit too strong? I think
We're
because
gonna
it'll
play
be
with it.
too much
We're still
AOE.
playing.
You've brought up the opposite
Yeah.
side of it, which is you have somebody who just body blocks for you. There's a lot of skill in playing a body block. But then it gets into issues where what if you're fighting a Necro that's got a lot of minions? You're just screwed, right? Because you just can't get to him because his minions are always in the way.
Yeah.
So we're going to play with it and see if we need to bring that damage accordingly, but we're going to watch the balance of that because it's going to open up a lot of play ramifications. So we'll have to see how it plays.
And with this beam attack change, I was going to say that there's a couple other skills that actually got it to. The Elementalist's Arc Lightning for the Scepter is going to have this same beam attack technology, and the Guardian's Downstate Wrath. Yes.
So you were talking about the engineer like turret play style. Are there any thoughts on like the Mantra Mez play style at all?
Self-plug.
Yes.
I particularly like the mantras themselves on the Mesmers, but I don't think it's strong enough just yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion on that one. I think we could bring it up in certain aspects. I know that there are some builds out there that, like Signets, they ready the mantras and that they never use them. They just keep them as damage.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's cool. But I'd rather they have an actual active play style. One of them right now is that I've been trying to refine on live.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been able to make it work in a tournament standard, but restorative mantras is one of my favorites. My favorite traits for them, where as soon as you get finished casting a mantra, it heals in an area around you. It heals for like 2,000 or so, without any healing power. But like, if you can keep casting mantras, and this is a great support style where you just keep casting the mantras and using them and healing your allies around you.
Okay. How about this? So for the Mesmer utilities, I think right now you're kind of pigeonholed in taking like 3 utilities. Is there any plans to maybe buff the other utilities for Mesmer to make it a little bit more diverse? It's right now it's Portal, Clones, or Blink, and then you're taking Illusion of Life, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'd really like the Phantasm clones to be a lot better, or the Disenchanter and the Defender as well.
That's actually not just Mesmer, though. There's a lot of classes
Yeah.
that are really pigeonholed into like very key utility skills, which we don't like. So we're going to be doing that for a lot of classes, not just in Mesmer.
Is there any plans to expand the build diversity in terms of Mesmer? Because right now it's just 2020-0030, and that's it.
Yeah, we would like to get more build diversity for the Mesmer out there.
Yeah. Which is why we'll see in the forums, we'll buff something that's weak. And people are like, why are they buffing the weak stuff? Nobody uses that. Well, because we want build diversity. We're trying to buff things that are not good so you guys have more options and choices, more counterplays back on each other. So that's what we're trying to do when we buff a really weak set or a weak utility. That's what we're trying to do.
So I
Mesmer
kind of have.
Shatter. Yeah. I know. I just wanted to get on Mesmer Shatter. I mean, I think that Shatter on Mesmer does a little bit too much as it is right now. Like, it removes spoons, it puts vulnerability, it does damage, and it puts confusion, and does massive AoE. I mean, nonetheless, add on an AoE beam attack. Mesmers will just stand a million miles away and blow everybody up.
Yeah.
So, is there a plan to reduce that? Because, like the Ellie cantrips, it does too much buffers so
Well, with-
little.
With the beam change, that's one of those things where the reason that they had so much shatter AoE damage before was so that they could always bring AoE if they needed it, especially in like World v World, PvE, advanced stuff like that. PvP is obviously great, but you're never fighting like 10, 20, 30 targets like you are in some or the other areas of the game. So as we do the beam stuff, that's one of those places we might have to shave a little bit of damage off of the shatter stuff. So yeah, we're gonna watch for that. But that's one of those places where they might have to come down to accommodate for a new buff that we're putting in the increase to those beam damages.
Yeah, because that Mesmer's like main or only source of AoE damage was from shatters. So stuff like that.
Yeah, but isn't balancing like PvP and PvE separate? Can't you just like separate it?
Yeah, we can. but we
It's been
can't.
done before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done some separation. It's a lot better if we can keep our skills kind of the same, so people can jump out of PvE and go right into PvP, and I say I know what this skill does. I know how much about about how it's effective, and so we'd like to be able to keep a lot of the stuff the same between PvP and PvE.
All right. In interest of time, we're going to move on. We got a lot more professions to cover, and we're running out of time here. So Necromancer next. Kind of just give us a little. What are we looking at on Necro? I know there's a lot of bugs. I just saw the cake thread, the one that they sent you guys. I saw that the other day.
They necroed on us. Yeah, that's great.
I see what you did.
Yes. So necromancers actually have gotten quite a bit of love lately. We've done several patches now where we've fixed a lot of their bugs and opened up we've opened up a few different builds for them based on like just bug fixes and a few other boosts here and there. In general, necromancers are kind of like they're a bit slower as a profession. It's going to be like these guys are like they're going to be. They need to move into that kill radius in order to like get somebody locked down. But once they start pounding on somebody, it should be like that person is going to have to run away or just die. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it.
All right.
Yeah, they're intended to have like heavy control over booms in terms of stripping them,
Or
converting, and saying that I don't need the necromancer. I don't need it as a necromancer. I do not need a whole lot of boons, but I can use my other skills to suffice.
Yeah, a lot of attrition through boon removal, life stealing, just higher base health pool and Death Shroud.
All right. Was the Death Shroud weapon swap change? Was that intended?
I don't believe. I'm not sure I was. No, I'm going to say
Nothing that I have.
Okay.
Unless you had something different.
Yes, but at the same time, it now conforms with like the way that our transforms work.
Mhm.
So while it wasn't intended, it's not necessarily like.
And the reason some of that stuff
bad
was
thing.
happening is that people didn't play the game a long time ago.
Mhm.
Basically, Death Shroud used to always fire
Yeah,
as soon
that's
as you
right.
went down as a Necro. Like if you had any kind of life
It was
force,
your
as soon as you
down
went down, you would go into Death Shroud immediately, which was just, as you can imagine, was way too strong. You would just always. We wanted to be skilled of hitting it. You have to actually activate your F1 now if you're really close to death. Before, if you went to 0, you would automatically kick into it. So that's why we're seeing some issues with that right now.
People couldn't use the
Yeah.
finisher on you because you're moving around in Death Shroud. You weren't laying on the ground like every other profession.
Yeah, so Death Shroud has gone through a lot of iterations in the past, and now it's more of an actual transform skill, like a tornado or your plague form, and it's not an actual down skill or down state.
Okay. So just from that, I'm going to assume that we're not going to see weapon swapping and Death Shroud coming back.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. That's what I was looking for. All right. You have any other final notes on Necro? And if not, we'll jump over to Ranger.
Yeah, let's go.
Real quick, let's talk about Necro.
Okay.
We feel like as far as build diversity, that is one of the few classes that does have actually a lot of build diversity. You can do the minion master. You've got wells if you want to. I've seen staff, I've seen dagger. Axe is still a little bit not so hot. Scepter is seen in some builds. You still see some signets used for some areas. You still
And there are
see,
some really heavy life Death Shroud builds as well.
It just has more options in other classes. So we want to get other classes up to where the options are for the Necro.
All right. Well, before you give your spiel on Ranger, I was kind of curious if this is going to be part of Thief as well. Using evade abilities while you're immobilized, is that something that we're going to see long term, or is that going to change?
It's been discussed
Yeah.
back and forth, heated debates internally. Obviously, it sucks if you're immobilized. It makes the mobilization much stronger if all of a sudden a thief, obviously, or an Ellie can evade.
It'll be practically a stun at that point.
Yeah, it's basically a stun at that
And
point. So
since we have immobilizes being up to like 4 seconds duration, and then you can stack them on top of, well, they don't stack in duration, but you can like keep on replacing them.
Yeah.
Like an engineer with a net turret, a
Sure.
supply crate, and a rifle could keep something immobilized for 8 seconds at a time. That would completely shut down evasion for a lot of professions.
it's something we talked about, but this is that kind of like we've gone back and forth. It's just kind of scary for what that would do to the balance. So
Yeah.
we're really watching that one carefully.
Okay.
Keep
All
going back and forth.
right. Did you want to talk about Rangers then, just in general? What are we looking at?
Rangers are kind of our long range
Mhm.
masters, and also potent skirmishers. So
Although longbow needs some work.
yeah,
It's not strong enough.
longbow does need a little bit of love because it doesn't like if you go into a full damage build, it's very powerful, but like it has almost nothing to protect itself at all,
Mhm.
and so in that I think our utility skills for the ranger are not effective enough at keeping it safe. To a certain extent, but on top of that, let's see,
I'm sorry about this.
yeah. Oh, yes. Lots of notes everywhere. So one of the things that we're introducing with this next patch is that agony resistance is going to be translated to pets as well. So for PvE players that are doing fractals, your agony resistance should also be translated over to your pets. This includes necromancers, like necrominions, elementalist minions, mesmer clones, that kind of thing. So they shouldn't be dying in like one hit
Sure.
as they did before.
What else we great sword stuff for them?
Yes, it's a great sword. So the great sword, we've got some improvements for their skirmishing weapon, great sword. We've brought down some recharges on a couple of the skills, and improved the damage for maul as well, in both damage and condition duration.
Sure.
Okay. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and jump ahead here again. We have 2 professions left, and then we'll kind of jump on some other topics. We were trying to rush through that because this does eat up a big chunk of the show. Obviously, there's a lot of
Yeah.
professions to cover.
Sorry, talk faster, huh?
All right, so we have Thief and Warrior left. Just go ahead and pick up with Thief. Take it away.
All right, Thief is our super mobile, like very elusive profession that has a very small health pool, but at the same time has a lot of survivability through evasion, stealth, and just general distraction. So let's see here. I wanted to say, let's see. Lots of.
I feel like Thief is really dependent on shortbow for mobility.
They are
They are.
dependent on shortbow quite a bit for mobility right now. Though they are able to, they've found a lot of different ways to use things like Heartseeker and massive initiative regeneration to kind of keep going nonstop. And a lot of the Shadow Step skills like Infiltrator Strike, which basically has like a massive like move distance.
Sure.
So yes, they're very skirmishy at this point, and we have been making some changes because right now thieves can stay in stealth almost like indefinitely, and they're like when they come out of stealth, there's usually not much of a chance to actually get a hold of them before they go back in. So one of the changes we've implemented for this next patch is that Revealed is now going to apply when you come out of stealth, regardless of how you.
So whether you attack or not, you'll get the revealed buff, or debuff rather.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be much using Cloak and Dagger, waiting the 3 seconds of stealth, and then using Cloak and Dagger again as like right as the stealth buff comes
Sure.
off. Just so that there's more play to actually like fighting against a thief.
Okay.
But to accommodate that though too, like you've brought up the short bow, like the need for mobility. You see this on the sword. They didn't always have the ability to dash with the sword like they do now. We want to put more of what's on the short bow, some other weapons as well, so they don't have to bring short bow with every single set to be mobile. We want the thief out of everybody to be one of the most slippery classes, one of the most mobile classes. Kind of like how an Ellie is. Like the Ellie kind of like is the king of that role still, even though it kind of should be the thief. So we're trying to push the balance more towards it's the thief doing that hit and run. You can never really get a hold of him unless you get to perfect immobilize and a perfect stun. You'd be more the thief and less the Ellie, because the Ellie right now is like, oh, I'll do that because I do everything else too, so I'll do that too. And the thief's like, I have no place on the team. Please let me do something. So we're trying to shift the balance over to that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
They're going to maintain a high damage availability. They're always going to be like very impactful in terms of like in a fight. If you're at low health, they're probably going to finish you right there.
Yeah, about that damage thing, the backstab combo right now, I mean, are you guys looking at that? Because from my point of view, not as a competitive player, but as a casual player playing the game and loading into my first hot join and then getting one-shotted by a thief.
Yep.
I mean, I understand that it's an issue that players need to get used to, but at the moment it's kind of difficult for a person to understand how to deal with it. Yeah.
We have some ideas on how we want to deal with it. Like if we don't really want to lower the effectiveness of backstab, but the trait called Mug is something that's dealing a huge amount of damage, and it also doesn't. Mug itself doesn't actually synergize well with other traits and things that stealth you and promote the stealth game.
But part of the problem too, Zeph, is that basically because the inability to actually get through boons and deal with boons for the thief, you had to put a lot of spike damage in there before because of the need to take down a bunker really quickly. So that when you did have that opening, you could actually take it down really quickly. So if we put in more traits that allow you to punish a lot of boons, we can bring down the raw damage on a lot of those skills so that it's not as reliant on a burst damage, kind of a gimmicky spec. It can be more of a spec that can actually hang with people in a longer fight, which is what the thief really needs in a lot of situations.
The only thing I was worried about is, I mean, I've seen it a lot. I've played a lot of Hot Join, and I have seen that one person that just started the game, and that thief standing outside of spawn, one-shotting them over and over and over, and I just feel sorry for him because I don't understand what this person can do, except turn around and roll a thief, because at the moment, like, Hot Join is absolutely dominated by thieves. And Mesmers, because they're two classes that confuse people that just start this game the most.
All right, well, let's switch over to Warrior then. Okay.
So I had one thing.
Go for it.
So I think I guess it's a product of the backstab build being so powerful, but I feel like a lot of other thief builds are really really weak, especially like Condi builds. Like they really don't have too much variety in terms of Condi. So like one cleanse gets rid of that huge stack of bleeds that you just put on. And additionally, like you said, I guess if you're looking to putting mobility into the other weapon sets away from short bow, then you can build more diversity that way.
Right. That's the intention. I mean, that's the goal. Yeah. It won't be every match, but that's the long-term goal. Yeah.
So, is there anything being looked at in terms of like Condi thieves?
Yeah, for the Condi thief, a lot of him, like as you say, he's really built on that bleed application over again. He can also do like some chain dazes, which are not actually Condi spec. Like you don't really care for that. You get some duration of that, but you don't really care. So that's one of those things where we've actually been looking at maybe do we need to introduce some more stuff to his bar, put some more poisons in more places. Like burning doesn't really make a ton of sense on him, but maybe we could find like a way to get burning on there thematically that makes sense for him, like a burning shot or something. We're trying to do that as well as the same thing is happening to the NG too. We want to make sure the NG has it play because the NG used to be really strong one-on-one skirmisher with Condis. Like he used to be really pretty decent at it, but because of balance, he's come down a little bit. So we're trying to get both of those guys back up to where they should be.
Really quickly, do you guys know about the Thief Basilisk Venom bug? Is that being addressed?
Which?
If you stun break the Basilisk Venom and you've still got that coloring on, the gray coloring, you cannot dodge roll.
Yeah, I think we're aware of that one. I think there's
I've seen a bug on it, but I don't think it's being addressed for this patch. But it's on somebody's plate for the next one.
All right. All right, so like I said, we're going to go ahead and jump onto Warrior then, and that'll be our last profession, and we'll move on to the next topic. So kind of give us your what's coming for Warrior.
So Warrior is Well, let's see what we have. We actually have some improvements.
The biggest thing was the bees.
Yes. So what's coming for Warrior this next time around is banner improvement. We're going to. So banners are kind of movable. I don't know what I would just say totems, like
Totems, buff points.
buff points, basically where you're going to put the banner down and you want to fight in that area, and then when you're ready to move or change positions or something like that, you pick the banner up and you go to the next point.
Mhm.
So for this time around, we've actually increased the attributes that the banners apply, and pretty much we've doubled the attributes that you gain over via levels. So instead of 90, you're going to have like 170 attribute points. One thing we didn't change was condition duration or critical damage, because those are pretty high already.
Okay, is that about all we're looking at right now for the Warriors? I feel like we mentioned earlier, a lot of the Warriors, depending on what build you play, you're kind of locked into certain utilities, especially if you're
Yeah.
playing like Hunter Blades. Is that something you're trying to look to address as well?
Yeah, well, we're giving increases to things, utility skills and skills elsewhere. Like for example, the longbow last patch got pinned down, increased massively, so that it has the warrior now has a better condition damage. Other than that,
I mean, there's some changes
Yeah.
to Rampage coming
Yeah,
in.
Yeah.
we've got some changes to kick and the way Rampage utilizes the kick skill as well. They're going to be a lot more mobile while they're using that.
The biggest problem the Warrior has is that basically he has some
Yeah.
insane specs in PvP that are just disgusting, and then he has some stuff that's not so hot in PvP unless you're in a very specific set.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to shut down with a lot of conditions.
The
So
warrior tends to be shut down with conditions.
Yeah.
Is that something you're going to look to address, possibly adding some condition removal in somewhere?
yeah, we're going to be careful
Yeah.
with it, because if you're not careful, the Warrior becomes this unstoppable beast that can get to anything and kill it really quickly. So we're trying to very slowly bring him back up to where he should be with the other competitive PvP templates.
Yeah, and he's also one of our candidates for receiving that boon punishment style of play.
Sure.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well then we're just going to go ahead and move ahead to, I guess what we're calling the road ahead. This is what I think most people are tuning in for. They're looking for any information we can get on some of the features coming out. I know you guys wanted to talk a little bit about, but I guess we'll start with leaderboards.
Sure. You want to talk about that stuff? You've been quiet, Dave? I've been coughing,
Well,
coughing my face
All
off.
right. So we have PvP leaderboards coming. Jeff already mentioned that they're going to be sortable based on like the data center that you're on. If you're NA or EU, or you can sort it by your friends or your specific world that you're on. They're going to be ranked based on their rating, but we're not going to show their rating. We do plan to show your win-loss record on there as well.
We can talk about big stuff too. We talked about a big patch a while ago. I talked about it, I think, back in October, November. So people keep asking every single patch, when is a big patch? So what we did for a lot of these things is we broke a lot of that stuff up and just started throwing it out, like the 1-versus-1 change for tournaments, the matchmaking stuff. Those were both supposed to be in that. We made the decision, let's just get this to the players now. There's no sense in making them wait. So what we're going to be doing going forward is we might not do a big patch. It's just as soon as Custom Arenas is ready, we might just throw it. As soon as Spectator Mode is ready, we might just throw it. Leaderboards, when it's ready, just throw it. We wanted to do a really big patch with a lot of hoopla behind it and all that stuff, but then we just started realizing, as these things are done, why don't we just give these to the player right now, like if they're ready? So we have a lot of the things that I just mentioned, those three, that are actually being tested right now. We're actually watching you. We know who the top players in the game are right now in the UA and NA. We can see the leaderboards internally. That stuff is really close to being good to go. We're just testing that. Same thing with Spectator, with the customs. So as soon as those get ready, we might not do the big patch where we make you guys wait till April, May, June, whatever that would be at this point. We might just say as soon as it's ready, we're going to give that stuff out. We
Okay.
might not do a big patch. We might do that instead.
So not to make you give an exact date, but so you did say April, possibly May, June, and that was for leaderboards, customs, and spectator.
Yeah, just when they're ready. I mean, we talked about why we don't give dates. I know a lot of people in the forums like, just give us dates, and then when it doesn't happen, that's fine. We're okay. We're big people. We can deal with it. It's just our policy. We've been told, you don't give dates for that kind of stuff. That's just our company policy. So those things are really close. I can't say exactly when, but
I did want to talk a little bit about what you can expect with spectator mode because
sure.
I think that how it works, what it means different things to different people.
Sure.
It's not going to be the same as observer mode in Guild Wars 1. It's going to be like a first person or a FPS type spectator mode where right now when you enter a match, right, like you're put on red team or blue team. Once we put this in, you enter the match with the spectator team, and you can observe the match from like predefined fixed camera points that you can click on any map, or you can click on like the party windows for either team to click on specific players, and you can follow from their perspective. You can see their hotbar when they use a skill. You can see like when it goes on cooldown. You can see what damage they're doing. Probably the coolest thing is that you're actually going to be able to look at their spec. You'll be able to inspect somebody's gear and traits and that loadout. Initially, spectator mode is only going to be for the hot join and custom arena modes. So, but eventually, we would like to add support for shoutcasting tournaments and that kind of thing, where like people that are like authorized shoutcasters will like be on a list for us, and they'll get like pop-ups when a tournament kicks off to see like, do you want to spectate this? And you can do streaming or shoutcasting for that match. Without like letting anyone in, so that they could whisper information and like cheat or that kind of thing.
Okay, so from what it sounds like, Spectator and Customs sounds like they'll be released together, kind of as a pair.
Sure.
What is the plan on because that's kind of like the beginning. Like we want to get this game to quote unquote esports. So when those come out, that's kind of like the first step in getting this done. Do you guys have any plans, or like what are the plans of bringing the players back that have already quit or have been waiting for these features?
So we have a few things. Some of that's going to be marketing. A lot of it's basically just going to be a priority list of just getting out all the things that players need, and then starting to do a really big push to get those players back. Like some of the stuff that we tried before, like with the three round tournaments, we tried some things that just didn't work. So we said, okay, we tried some cute stuff. Some people enjoyed it, but a lot of people didn't. So let's rework that. That pushed our plans back a little bit for the esports stuff, but we wanted to fix the game that was there first. And then we decided, okay, once we get that done, let's get the big stuff that we have to have, which is the leaderboards, spectators, custom arenas, and then after that, then we start to really push the game as an esport. But if we don't have those tools for you guys yet, then we can't really, like, you can't play it right now as an esport with what's there.
Like it doesn't do us a lot of good to do like a big marketing push for the game if like some of like core problems are still there, like progression and rewards and that kind of thing. Like we want to make the core features really robust before doing it.
Okay.
A question, possible. Firstly, about the leaderboards. Are we going to have separate leaderboards for players and teams? Because if not, then you're going to see a bunch of teams on that single leaderboard.
So right now, since tournaments are like all lumped together, right? Like the rated play, the team play. Right now, that is something where teams and solo queuers are all going to be in the same leaderboard. So that's something that going forward we're going to readdress when we make the split.
And also, if possible, like for the rest of the community, can you specify at least something that we're going to be getting in the upcoming patch? At least something for people to look forward to in the upcoming patch.
Sure. We've talked about all the balance stuff that we've got right now.
Yeah.
Basically, what we're doing is we're just watching leaderboards, and just once we are sure that they're 100%, we're just going to flip them on. So I can be totally honest and tell you that we don't even know when that will be, because it could be, right now we're not seeing any problems, which means it could be even before the patch. They could be after the patch. They're that close that we're just watching them. And we had one issue come up last week, so we had to pause them for about 2 days, but as long as nothing happens, those could come out really quickly and leaderboards will go up. Now that'll be for World versus World and for PvE and for PvP. So it'll be the whole leaderboard system for everybody. We're just kind of watching those things to make sure that there's no issues, and then those things will go up.
Okay, one last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll kind of open up the floor for Nero and Zeph, kind of get some of their questions out of the way. I know they gathered a lot of questions from the community. PvP progression. Right now, there's not really any incentive to play. Besides having fun, of course, but there's no real, like, I'm not getting any rewards for playing besides just getting the same tournament chests I've been getting for months. What are the plans to change?
Well, I can't go into too many specifics yet because we haven't locked them down, but one of the things is looking at how long it takes to get each rank, and also maybe even just expanding the total number of ranks. So right now, like, you can get 80 ranks, but they're like exponentially harder to get. Like after each tier of 10, like, maybe in the future there's 400 ranks, but like you can get like 1 or 2 ranks a day, right? And so you constantly have that feeling of progression, and then we can like tier out rewards more often based on that. The other problem, right, is that each rank costs more, so you're earning like 100,000 glory or 300,000 glory, but like the cost of chests is the same.
Yeah, sure.
So like as soon as you rank up past that threshold of 10, like now you buy 600 chests and you have nothing to look forward again for like another month or 3 months or however long, depending on how high you are. So like that's definitely something that we need to go back and address.
Is there any plans on bringing gems back?
I would say it's pretty unlikely at this point since
Okay.
Yeah,
we took out tickets.
Okay, all right. You guys have anything for him, Nero, Zeph?
Yeah, I was just in terms of build diversity, I feel like there's a lot of innate issues just with the skill trees. Like, for example, like Condi duration and power, like they're paired as opposed to like Condi duration and Condi damage. In terms of like whenever you're investing skill points into certain like trait lines, you're getting like X amount of each of those. And in a game where you're really trying to like min max and just like achieve the most potential from your character, it seems like that artificially limits it.
Yeah. If we have like condition damage and condition duration in the same trees, it's kind of like a why wouldn't you take this tree because it's one thing. It's so.
Yeah, I mean,
if you take,
in a way, your build's already defined.
Yeah,
for you.
it's like this is you'd be dumb not to take this because this line has power and crit damage at the same time. Whenever you crit, you're going to deal more extra damage. Even so, we want to have players make the choice to go. So if I'm going to go a condition damage build, do I also want condition duration on that, or do I have enough condition saturation where I don't need the duration? We want players to make choices that actually diversify their builds in that fashion.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Go for it.
So are you really aiming at people having these more like hybrid-ish specs, especially in like not having healers in the game? Because that's kind of what it seems like builds are just angled towards in general, like just in looking at the general trait distributions.
Sure.
What do you want?
I can talk about it, but you can talk about it.
Oh, go for this one.
Okay. For a lot of these, what we did is the actual what's tied to each of the trees was actually different before. We've tried different variations on those. So that's one of those things that we can still change if we wanted to. One of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we're building a meta that's not entirely dependent on the bunker, but still allows the bunker to exist. And when I say bunker, for people who don't know, is more of the defensive guy who holds a position or in PvE is just really strong, can take a lot of damage.
And bunker could be defined as like simply not taking damage. You can do it through evasion. You can do it through having protection and boons. You can do it through healing, or just being evasive overall, like with stealth and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but the intention, back to your question, is kind of that we wanted each class to have different specs that they could do, but a lot of times we'll see classes that even if they have a cool spec that they could try, they might not have the skills or the weapon sets to support it because the numbers for those are just too weak. So a lot of times you just can't make a build because, but this skill just sucks in this weapon. So that's something we got to fix for a lot of the classes, or else the trait lines don't matter if the weapons suck, right? You're just going to go where the good weapons are for a lot of these, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. Because that's the skills that you're going to be using. That's what's getting you out of situations. That's what's shutting down opponent hills. That's what's actually applying pressure or spiking. So a lot of that just comes to, again, trying to bring everybody up as we do those buffs to the weaker lines. That's what we're trying to do, is get that. And then hopefully once all the weapons are actually equal, this is like the high level balance idea. Once all the weapons are equal, then you see those trait lines start to open up a lot more because people have more options. Some classes right now only have 2 or 3 really strong viable options, so that's all you're going to see, which is just, we've got to balance those better.
And one kind of general question, I mean, we have, the tanks, we have the DPS, but we just don't have the healers. Is there any reason that those were specifically left out?
Yeah, that's by design for now. We don't want it to be the case that you just have healers who can keep people up, like in Guild Wars 1. In a lot of games, the healer just becomes mandatory. Like, you just have to have one. Once it becomes good enough, you just kind of got to have one. You've got to have that support guy. So the numbers we're trying to play with right now is keeping those out of the game, but being able to support people really well, but not just be a dedicated healer. That's something that we don't want to do.
It's much better to go off of like having your group kind of set up, be like, hey, everybody's going to have some heals here, so we can keep each other alive. That kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a
So
thing with
supporting.
more, it encourages more personal responsibility. Like, if you die, like, it's usually because you made a mistake, right? Like, you didn't dodge or you didn't use your own heal. It's not like, oh, I've got to blame my buddy who's a monk that's, you didn't keep me up, you healed the wrong guy instead. Like, why did you do that? Like, there's a lot of animosity, or like bringing someone to your team just because they play a healer because your team needs a healer. Sure.
And I mean, that's by design, though. I mean, we don't let you target your allies. We don't let you really, throw stuff to them in the way that traditional games do. That's a very much a by design. We didn't want to take out the
skills
Trinity.
that actually target your allies, and things like merciful intervention for Guardians are like one of the few examples of the ones that are specifically they'll hit your nearest ally.
All right.
Does that make sense?
So, Zeph, we did open the floor, so if you've got any questions, I know you had a massive thread looking for input from the community, so feel free to fire away.
Your
Uh-oh.
microphone's off.
Your mic's off.
Just interpret.
All
Well
right,
done.
sorry.
There
Sorry. No, most of those have been answered throughout the talk. All really that I really want to talk about is incentive for PvP players right now. I think that is the biggest issue, and that's what most people are looking for, is just incentive to play. Some guy on the chat has been asking throughout this talk, so he wants to know if it's possible to have endless finisher tokens, or maybe even not tokens, our ability to turn them on and off. I mean, that'd be a little thing.
To whoever that guy is, that's a great question. With the current system, no. There may or may not be a new system coming that will deal with that exact issue. How about that?
All right. And in the future, can we look at like having more incentive, maybe armor sets that you can get via winning a certain amount of tournaments, like winning 100 paid tournaments, you get a specific set. I think people like that. Most of the people have asked for that in the thread, incentive to play.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we want to add more incentives to play. Armor sets are notoriously really expensive and time-consuming for us to create, because we have to make variants for heavy, medium, light, and then every the male, female, and the 5 race variants. So it's actually a lot faster to make weapons or back items and stuff like that. But long term, that's definitely possible.
But part of I think what you guys are getting at is that right now, if I go play with somebody and they're rank 50, I don't know, did they just go AFK and grind for that? Are they actually a good player? I don't know. There's no way to tell. There's no way to have an incentive to say I can actually say that I'm really a good player. So that's one of those things that we've been having a lot of meetings lately about is if I'm that player, do I have any specific titles for being top of the leaderboards? Do I have any specific items that people know that only a top amount of people on the leaderboards can get? Those are the type of things we're trying to get to you guys. We've been having some meetings on that stuff. I can't give too many details, but that's exactly where we're heading with that stuff. So that you can say, no, I'm on the leaderboards, I'm really good, and here's my in-game reward to show you that I'm really good. I didn't just grind for rank. I didn't just grind for QP. I'm actually good, and you can tell. That's where we want to go with that stuff.
Also, another game mode, if possible, not one that is competitive, but let's say one that is mindless fun for people who burn out. Because a lot of people I know burn out on playing the regular node control and just want to have some mindless fun. So if there's I don't know, simply an arena mode where people kill each other or something, as
yeah, I mean,
as fun as Keg Crawl. So,
Sure.
it was certainly the case that we only shipped with 4 PvP maps, right? And they were all conquest, and only 3 of those we were putting in the tournament rotation. So initially we were just focusing on getting more conquest modes that our core game type that we could put in the tournament rotation. I think now that we've got a good number of them, we can feel more comfortable spending time experimenting with different game modes like Team Deathmatch or King of the Hill or anything like that. And so certainly I don't know, when it will happen, but like it's something that we're gonna really actually look at now, which it was on the back burner before.
And we've had prototypes for all those types of game types actually internally. A lot of them actually just team deathmatch doesn't always play very well. It's basically we just kind of run in the middle, pop our elites, and whoever wins wins. It's cool for a different change
It's
of
very
pace.
very fast.
Yeah, so we're looking at those things, but also custom arena Zeph is going to open up a lot of that stuff because we can watch what people are doing, what are the most popular settings, where are people going, what are they turning on, what are they turning off, and then based off that, that'll help us inform our decisions on what we're developing next. So that's why we're really excited about custom arenas coming online.
I've got a question about the in-game scoreboard. Do you guys have any plans on like expanding on that, like showing kills, deaths, damage done?
Yeah, we want to do a revamp to that thing to actually give you guys real stats that actually tell you what actually happened and who was doing well and places where maybe you did your best performance for your whole life just happened this game. Let's talk about why. Was it the most damage you ever did, the most healing you ever did for allies? You just stripped the most conditions ever. We want to do a lot of that stuff. So we're revamping that stuff, which plays back to Nero's thing about like teaching like new players. Like they don't really know how to play the game. They don't understand why they're dying to that backstab. What was it?
Yeah.
Like they don't understand.
And spectator mode's gonna help that too because
Sure.
like in Zeph's situation where a thief just stabs somebody in a hotjar match, like you're gonna be able to switch to the spectate team and spectate that thief, and you're gonna be able to watch him play and like see what skills he uses and like what when he finds somebody that gives him trouble, like you might be able to replicate that yourself and learn from that. So.
What do you
I
got
just
for us?
had 2 questions real quick. One, has there been any discussion in terms of qualifying points and what's going to happen with those?
Yep, there has been very recently.
Yes. You're not saying what it is yet.
We're not saying what it is, but
Okay.
it goes to what Zeph was talking about, is like just the prestige of showing like who am I and why am I good. We want to do that and then carry that over to leaderboards later.
Additionally, just in general with SPVP as a whole and developing Guild Wars 2 into this, PvP game, what do you guys foresee as like your biggest challenge?
You want to each take turns, or I know what mine are, but mine not be.
I mean, there's a lot of places that we need to improve, and like we've hit on a lot of them throughout this discussion. But like progression and rewards and incentivizing people to play and like increasing the new player experience and like improving the tournament system, like all of that are like. Those are all things that are key to us being successful.
For me, well, from my perspective, like balance, build diversity, purity, purpose towards like what role you want to play. I'd really like, yeah, that's pretty much sums it up right there for me. Yeah.
It's really in philosophy the term is used of an irreducibly complex machine, which is like a mousetrap. It kind of needs all of its pieces to work. Just any one of the pieces, if you take it out, it doesn't work anymore. I kind of feel like esports is kind of like that. Like you've got to have a fan base. You have to have a good game. It has to be spectator friendly, easy to learn. It's got to be something that people enjoy playing over and over again. It's got to have a lot of rewards so that I'm rewarded for every time I come back to the game. I'm rewarded. Like you kind of need all that stuff together. So there's no real single thing I would single out, but there's a lot of pieces that we're not doing well enough now. And once we get all the pieces in, those are being done well, then we can say, okay, now let's start a push for this thing and really push it hard.
I've got a question.
Sure.
So you use the term apex predator builds. Like everyone naturally migrates to the strongest build for their profession.
Sure.
So just looking at those those builds for those professions only, how do you feel the balance of the game is overall right now?
It's getting better.
It's getting better, but you still
Yeah.
see, it sucks to see 2 or 3 of the same profession when you jump into a lot of games. That just tells you that something's off there if you see
Like
2 or 3 for
in hot
different roles.
joins, it is like the apex predator is the thief still, or the mesmer.
Mhm.
And then in tournament play, it's more there's a lot more. I've noticed actually a lot more diversity in tournament play lately than.
I think people are
Okay,
trying
but-
stuff too, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
You mentioned you mentioned people bringing multiple classes into a tournament. The more classes, if you like before like this patch elementals, you could bring like 3 and still be incredibly viable. Do you have any plans on some way like reducing build wars in this game, like maybe making it so you can't swap characters once you load into a map, or penalizing people that do so?
Yes, we have plans for exactly that.
Yes.
Basically, what we're waiting on for that stuff is we need the tech to basically have the template stuff, which basically just says this is all of my character. This is all of my traits, my skills, loadout, all that stuff. Once we have that, then we can basically, when we have the tech to recognize that, we can tell when you've deviated from that after logging out and coming back in, which will give us the tech to basically lock people into that stuff. We're still playing with the idea of maybe everything is locked except you can still swap utilities after the combat's happened. If you're out of combat, right, after the match has happened. So that you're locked into your class, but you can still change utilities to get a little bit. The concept there that we have basically is like Magic the Gathering. You have a sideboard. So even though I can't change my deck, I can change out a small percentage to kind of give me a little bit of help in this matchup, but not everything. We don't want you to swap out like, all right, this is my mono red burn. Let me just switch this over to mono black control after game one. Like that's not what we want to do. So.
All right. Well, we are really short on time. Nero, Zeph, you got any last questions? Anything before we go?
Throw them out.
A quick thing about combo fields, they just seem really underutilized. I feel like that might be in part due to just how devastating AoE damage is, and be like, hey, let's all gather around this little point so we can just get nuked. I mean, are combo fields being looked at? Because I feel like they're a really cool feature. They're just really not able to be utilized to their fullest potential right now.
You answered your own question.
Yeah.
AoE. We can talk about the AoE stuff. The AoE, we've talked about wanting to do that. We're being really careful with the AoE stuff that we want to do to bring down the efficacy of all AoEs, because it's going to impact every single aspect of the game. PvE, all events, dungeons, World v World, PvP.
Yeah, you mentioned this a few State of the Games back, where we were going to take a look at AoE damage, and we are taking a look at AoE damage.
We're really careful with that because it's going to change the way that everybody plays Guild Wars 2.
It's going to take
everybody, so we're being really
a
careful.
longer
with that.
time to get this
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
And the way that works is just we generate numbers, and then based off that we find aberrations, and then we kill the aberrations.
All right. Before we go, do you guys
One
have
more.
anything? Oh, go ahead, Zeph. What do you got?
Just res signets and reses in general. Do you feel that it's a bit too powerful at the moment? Because I know as a mesmer, like Illusion of Life is it's
Very.
too strong at the moment. Too strong, and it needs to be addressed. There needs to be a repercussion for having that skill up on your bar, which there isn't now, and everybody just runs them.
Right. We've actually seen the meta do this with those. There was a time when everybody basically had to run some type of res because of the way that we had the balance, and then we hit a lot of them and they came back down. And then now we're seeing it come back up that especially mesmers are starting to bring a lot of those. Necros before we're using the Signet of Undeath, stuff like that. That's one of those things that we don't want because it defeats the point of actually having res stuff. But it should be a really big decision. If you bring that, you're basically taking out a utility slot to say I want to res somebody when they go down. But there needs to be some cost to that, and right now it's not where it needs to be. So we're looking at it definitely.
Yeah, before when Vengeance would rally you, or when Illusion of
Yeah.
Life would rally you off of anything you killed, there was a lot. There was a lot more taken. So yeah, we're still taking them. We're still looking at all that stuff regularly.
The problem with those res signets is that I think they're a bit too strong when everybody, especially in the meta right now, where everybody's a bit tanky.
Yeah.
And once you get someone up,
hard to
then
take down.
it's hard to take them back down again. And it also, like for a spectator, it'll be really boring to watch a mid fight go on for 10 minutes with people just constantly resing each other.
Yep.
Even from the downstate, resing someone from downstate. Is there any plan to make it sort of like PvE, where you get up with less HP each time?
We've talked about
And-
doing it in PvP as well, yeah. To kind of attrition fights out. That's one of the mechanics we had in Guild Wars 1. If you guys played GW1, you basically had DP. We're just being really careful because that also made it such a case that you basically couldn't come back from some fights.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to be careful because once you went like negative 60, it was just basically GG. You know, especially on a monk.
And in PvP, you used to have a lot of. Like, at one point, we did have down penalty. But yeah, it felt it was really hard to come back from a situation after you had died, like once or twice.
Yeah,
I mean-
just be careful with it.
Can you have it drop when someone leaves combat, and that way they can actually have to get out of the fight and get out of combat before it resets?
Yeah, there's options for that. Like
Yeah.
maybe when somebody has to use a waypoint to go back, that's when their death penalty is cleared. So maybe a death penalty would only occur if you are
A single fight,
if
basically.
you're resurrected by an ally.
That's a
You
good
know,
idea.
There's lots of options there.
All right. You guys have anything for us before we let you go? Anything you'd like to say to the community before we hang up?
Oh, wait, what was it? Did you get all the things you're supposed to say? We're listening to player feedback, and fair enough, and soon, and when it's ready, and we can't say it at this point.
Yes.
Oh,
Is that
this win led everything. Then we got it.
Fair enough.
I know, but but seriously, like we are listening to you guys. That's why we want to keep doing this state of the game stuff. We want to have this interaction with you guys. We're sorry we can't post as much on the forums.
We do read the forums.
We read the forums, but a lot of times, guys, if we're posting on the forums, we're not working. Which sounds like super simple, but it's really like Carl's either balancing and redoing scripts and redoing numbers and timing stuff, or he's posting like on the forums or reading forums. So a lot of times I'll say, Carl, balance the game instead. They will love you later, even if you don't post in the forums.
Then I'll go
they'll
home and
understand.
read the forums. So.
Yes. So we're sorry we don't post more on the forums. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, again, big thanks to Tyler Bierce, John Sharp, and Carl McLean. Also, Nero and Zeph. Thanks for coming on, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, that's the show for today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you,
We love you,
guys.
Brad. Thanks.
Thank you.